Hi everyone, this is Arcadius and welcome back to Naval Creed. Today we'll be going over the stats clash for the Matchmaking Tier 5 battleships. I did take last week off due to the holiday, and I am back with a lot of new information. We have had at least two updates in the meantime, and they are both pretty interesting updates. So, let's go into the new information and then we'll follow into our video of the stats clash later on. So let's start with last week's um, update. So we have a few things. British cruisers came out for testing, or pre-released, I should say. We have Hawkins, we have County, we have Surrey, and we have Albemarle. I have renamed my sister ship of Neptune Adelaide, since it was originally Albemarle, but we now have that ship in the game. So a little change there if you are interested in that. I have been playing these ships pretty religiously lately, just trying to get a good feel for all of them. Hawkinson County have pretty weak armor, but Albemarle and Surrey actually have pretty decent armor. I don't think I've been able to Citadel them once, even with 8-inch guns. Their armor piercing hits like a truck. Their high explosive doesn't do as much damage as I would think it does, but it does set a lot of fires. And then their torpedo angles are really, really good. Hawkins unfortunately doesn't get any, so that is her main drawback. And then their anti-aircraft defense, I really haven't had a chance to test that out either. I haven't really been attacked by a carrier yet, so yeah. But just gonna go into a real quick rundown on Hawkins, considering we did the Tier 5 cruisers last time we did Stats Clash. Some of her stats were up for debate since I wasn't able to get the upgraded ship itself. I couldn't see her final form. I can see that now. So, in terms of anti-aircraft defense, once she's fully upgraded, she actually has really, really good anti-aircraft defense. Her DPS is about 67 or 68 altogether. Actually, we can take a look at that here. Let's see here. 19, 26, and 22. So it does go up a little bit, at least in terms of middle ring and inner ring damages. And it's pretty respectable. Comparatively, it's about as strong as a Furutaka with defensive AA equipped. So, yeah, I mean, it's not a lot. You're not going to be exceptionally good like Krasny Kavkaz with their defensive AA activated at 110 DPS, but it's still pretty decent for a low tier cruiser. The main thing, or the main drawback with this ship though, is her armor. It seems every time I get hit by a battleship shell, it's always going to be a Citadel. You get shot like maybe 3 times and you're sunk. Not even a question. Then you're always going to be a Citadel. And then the fact that she's the only cruiser that doesn't have torpedoes, it really, really impacts your playing style, because when you get close enough, you're like, oh, I'll just use torpedoes and rush. You don't have that capability with this ship, and that really does show. Other than that, though, her high explosive is really good. Her armor piercing is exceptionally good. With every single one of these British heavy cruisers, you can expect between 9,000 and sometimes even 15,000 damage per armor piercing salvo. It's really, really, really impressive. Once all these ships are fully released, because I'm hoping, and there will be a 9 and 10, I'm pretty sure. Once all the ships are released, we will be going over them one by one. So hopefully that'll be soon. And then there was a event for a new sister ship. This time is for the Soviet cruiser Japayev. Oh, where is she? There she is. I have renamed her Shalkov, which is actually another Japayev class cruiser, just of a different name. And it is a Christmas camo, considering it's the holiday. And this is what it looks like. We got a little reindeer on the front, some candy canes. We have some sleighs where lifeboats are supposed to be. It's all fun stuff. Yeah, I like the stockings at the back personally. And then like the snow on the deck. That's a really nice touch. I like that. So this is the camo you earn for the current event. It is this one. I know this doesn't give you much information, but let's see here. All right, so pretty much it's just you versus a lot of tier 8 battleships and then some tier 10 carriers. It's actually not an easy match at all. I've only done lightweight and ultimate. I barely passed lightweight, got trounced in ultimate, and haven't even attempted the single challenge yet. We'll have our own videos on those sometime later, possibly sometime next week. And then we'll go over to what they have. I have already cleared out the event. I just bought the points. It's easier that way for me. But yeah, this is what the camo it looks like, the one you're working towards. It's a pretty nice camo. I don't have any problem with it. I like the red. It's very nice. All right, so that was last week's update, and now we have this week's update. We now have the ability to research and purchase Porter, the next American split line destroyer. I have only played one game with her so far. She is being compared against Fletcher as the other tier 9 destroyer, and Fletcher's a hard ship to overcome in terms of usefulness. You have good AA, you have rapid firing guns, you have really good torpedoes, and you're pretty fast and maneuverable. There's honestly not a downside to this ship at all. Cannot be said for Porter, however. She does excel in terms of guns. She has 8 guns, which is a lot on American destroyer, and they are pretty decent as well. They don't turn as fast or reload as fast, and they're not dual purpose, so they don't have any impact on her AA defense. But in terms of gunpowder, she will not, or I should say she should not, lose a gun duel with any other destroyer. You'll take a lot of damage, of course, especially if you're going up against another Porter or even a Fletcher, but with 8 guns, that's a lot of alpha damage. You can do a lot of damage there. One thing I did realize in the gameplay, these are quite obviously quadruple torpedo mounts, meaning only 4 torpedoes. However, when I was actually in game, it was launching 5 torpedoes. So there's a mystery 5th torpedo launcher there. I'm sure that'll be fixed in a hot patch, probably tomorrow maybe, or maybe they'll just upgrade them to Quins, who knows. But right now it's a nice little thing. It's launching 10 torpedoes right now. In terms of AA defense, it's just about as bad as I expected. I was under attack by an Audacious for 90% of the match, and I only shot down 2 planes. So, yeah, nothing really there. And then her torpedo angles are absolute trash. They're pretty much just broadside only. So, yeah, once the Somers is out as well, hopefully soon, we'll go over all 3 of these additional destroyers one by one. I do have to play more games in them though. I only have 1 game still in Venom. And then we just got Porter, and then we can look at Somers, but we can't play her yet. This is what she looks like here. It's pretty much just a Porter with another quadruple torpedo mount. Probably with similar angles, but if she's anything like Porter, she's going to be very, very fun, because I actually did enjoy playing the game with Porter, and they're actually the same size pretty much. So hopefully they'll play just about the same. But yeah, pretty good ships, and hopefully we'll see Somers in the future. And then we also have Virginia, or at least that's what I call her. Her real name is Michigan. And Michigan is the only non-rank point ship you can get for the American battleship line that has 18-inch guns. The other one, of course, being Rhode Island, which has, 15 of them, which is an ultimate powerhouse. But West Virginia is not too far behind. She's kind of a mix between a Massachusetts and an Iowa. She has like Iowa kind of gameplay, but Massachusetts weaponry. It's really hard to compare her to another ship, considering she's the only one that has 18-inch guns. But if you kind of play her along the lines of an Iowa, you would not be wrong. She has really, really strong guns. I didn't really get a chance to try her AA. I've only played 1 game. There was no carrier in that game. Secondaries, I tried to see if they were similar to Illinois, because you can't really tell in the numbers screen. You just have to play the game to see how the secondaries work. They are not Illinois secondaries. Don't really recommend a secondary build at all. Armor-wise, don't give broadside. Learned that really quick when I was shooting the other Michigan and the other team. I citadeled it 4 times and it sank in like 2 salvos. So yeah, it's got like the Iowa broadside. Actually, it was even worse than that, I feel. It was most similar to a Yamato broadside. So yeah, just don't give broadside at all if you can help it. Didn't really get a chance to bow tank, but that might be a very safe bet. I was even able to citadel the ship on this kind of angle, so I got the turret cheek too. It's got the old Yamato weakness. Relatively speaking, if you look at the numbers, she is slightly slower. She's about, well, she's only 0.5 knots faster than Yamato, but not terrible. If you actually want to see the game stats, remember this is the first game I've had in her, and I was able to do 362,000 damage right off the bat. 5 ships are sunk. Yeah, you can see I do have quite a few secondary armament hits. I was trying to figure out if it was a good ship for secondary brawling. It's not. Their secondaries on this ship are just as good / bad as British carrier secondaries. All the gunners are cross-eyed, so don't really expect much from that. But all in all, it's a really good ship, and it is the first American Prism battleship we have in the game. It's not the only one that has premium benefits. We also get Prism benefits on Orion, but that's a Starcoin ship. So not something you can just randomly purchase for Prisms. Massachusetts is a diamond ship. Missouri is a free XP ship. Louisiana is also a free XP ship. Illinois is a diamond ship. Orion is a Starcoin ship. Maryland is an event ship. Rhode Island is an rank point ship, and Virginia is the only Prism ship. So I'm glad to see we finally have a Prism ship for American battleships now. Hopefully we'll have a lot of good games with her, and we'll see how she plays in the future. We'll have our own video on her another time. Alright, so enough yabbering about new stuff in the game. I don't think there's anything else. Oh, I guess one last thing. Tier 9 carriers. So that would be Taiho, Essex, and Audacious. Possibly Victorious, actually. I'm not sure. I don't remember that in the update on Facebook. But all of the 3 tech tree carriers now have updated anti-aircraft effects, which is good because we're slowly getting better AA effects in the game. We only have top tier battleships, top tier carriers, and now top tier, well, not top tier, tier 9 carriers. And I think Worcester has it as well. Maybe some Des Moines, Daring, Shimakaze has them as well. So there's a smattering of ships in the game that have the updated effects. So hopefully we'll see that put in for the rest of the ships as well. All right, so today's video is on tier 5 matchmaking battleships. So let's head over and start that. All right, so tier 5 battleships. We have 9 battleships and battle cruisers. I'm just going to call them battleships to make it easier on me. And we have the Japanese battleship Congo, which is a really strong ship for this tier. We have the American battleship New York, the French battleship Bretagne, the German battleship Koenig, the other German battleship Bayern, the British battleship Iron Duke, British battlecruiser Tiger, and technically is a battleship, but plays as a battlecruiser in this game, HMS Canada, and then lastly, the Russian battleship Imperatrice Maria. So just a quick rundown on all of these ships. Congo is a fast, speedy ship with 14-inch guns and the longest range at this tier. So she can shoot far and she can maneuver away from every other battleship at this tier. But she does lack in terms of armor and maneuverability, but she also has pretty decent secondaries in AA as well. One of my top picks for this tier. New York, not really a good pick. She has very squishy armor and she's really slow. That being said, you do have some of the strongest broadside firepower in this at this tier with 10 14-inch guns. Even if the gun angles are bad, if you can get all 10 of your shells out, that's gonna hurt a lot. AA is pretty okay on this ship as well. And secondaries, don't even think about it, not at all. Britannia, armor is absolute trash. Gun layout was a little bit better than Corbeil. Secondaries are absolute trash as well. AA on paper looks pretty decent. In game, kind of questionable. But maneuverability, I think she's small enough that she actually is pretty decent. Koenig, really good armor, such as the fact with all German battleships, honestly. Guns that turn slower than molasses and are inaccurate as heck. But if you get close enough, it doesn't matter because your armor holds up. And then you can also use your secondaries, which you have armor piercing and high explosive secondaries to limited effect. But your anti-aircraft defense is actually pretty decent. We also have Bayern. Technically, she is a matchmaking 5.6 or 5.5, I think. It's a 5.6. But she's actually tossed into tier 5 and tier 6 games. Now, this is because she is too strong to be a tier 5, but she's too weak to really be a tier 6 as well. So they did well with her matchmaking. I don't have any complaints about it. That being said, though, when you are tossed into a tier 5 game, you absolutely crush everything that's in your path. You have 15-inch guns, which is the biggest guns at this tier, and they can overmatch all bow armor. So even if you angle, you just laugh at them and punch through their nose and do a ton of damage because you have 15-inch guns. Your accuracy, on the other hand, is not the best, but if you put enough work into it, it does become pretty favorable. Your maneuverability is really, really good as well, considering you're such a small ship. You also have the same kind of secondaries as Koenig with armor-piercing casemates, and then on deck you have dual-purpose high-explosive guns. Fully upgraded for a secondary build, you can go up to 7.2 kilometers with these suckers, and they do a ton of damage on any kind of ship you come across, especially battleships too. If you have all your armor-piercing secondaries fire at like a New York or something, you can easily get like 5,000 to 6,000 damage with just your armor-piercing secondaries. Our anti-aircraft defense is, I think, the strongest at this tier as well, believe it or not. And then, yeah, her armor is, it's a German ship. She's going to have strong armor. So one of the best ships to have at this tier. Next, we have Iron Duke. Pretty similar to New York, I would say. Her armor is a little bit better, I would say. She does have more secondaries, though not really useful secondaries. You have some AA, not anything that spectacular. And you don't have high explosive. You do have long fuse armor piercing, though, which also gives you the added benefit of being able to overmatch other battleships as well, similar to how Bayern does it, except you can do it with 14-inch guns. Actually, well, they're not exactly 14s, they're like 13.7s. They're 343s. And you have 10 of them, so a little bit better. Honestly, though, not one of my top picks. We have the free XP ship, Tiger. Is kind of based off of Congo, but is an inferior version of it, in my opinion. She does have better high explosive. She does get the British battlecruiser high explosive with like an insane percent of fire chance. So anything you look at, it's just going to burst into flames immediately, pretty much. Her range is not as good. Her speed's not as good. Her guns aren't as good, I would say, in my opinion. But I do believe she has this highest health pool at this tier, so we'll check that in a moment. We have Canada, which is the newest event ship for Britain, and it actually has the largest guns for the British Navy at this tier, 14-inch exactly. So you're similar to New York when having 10 14-inch guns. You have more secondaries, but a little bit less in terms of the high explosive capability of the British battlecruiser. She does get a speed boost, which is interesting because you have a ship with 10 14-inch guns and a speed boost. And British battlecruiser high explosive, it actually makes for a very interesting ship. Still haven't had a lot of games with her lately, so gameplay is questionable, or at least in my experience. But on paper, there's no reason to say this is a bad ship. And then lastly, we have Trista Maria. We're still stuck with 12-inch guns on this ship, but that's okay because she gets 12 of them. It is pretty much just a tier 4 tossed onto a tier 5 matchmaking. They slapped a couple more secondaries on her, and that's honestly just about it. But even with that, she's still a pretty powerful player. 12, 14, yeah, 12, 14s. 12, 12-inch guns is still nothing to scoff at, so she can still dish out the damage when needed. All right, so let's go over our statistics. So we're going to start with the basics. Health-wise, Britannia has the least at 44,100. And yep, Tiger has the most at 57,300. So that's a difference of over, what is that? What's that? 13,200 health difference. That's like an entire broadside salvo of armor piercing shells, and sometimes two, if depending on what ship it is. So that's quite a difference in terms of health. But all the others are about 50 to 54,000 health. Pretty decent. Torpedo damage protection, Britannia again has the least at 6%. That honestly does nothing for you at all. Don't expect it to. You just have no health, no armor, no nothing. Torpedo percent though, New York has the most at 30%, but you also have 25 for Congo, 28 for Iron Duke, 27 for Tiger, and 25 for Canada. So all pretty resistant to torpedoes. Having 27% on Tiger added to the high health pool she has means she's pretty much impossible to one-shot with torpedoes no matter what you have. There's only a couple ships that can do that. Belt armor. Congo has belt armor 8 inches. New York has 12. Britannia has just under 11. Same with Koenig. Bayern gets 12. Iron Duke gets 12. Tiger gets just under 9 inches. Same with Canada. And then Maria gets just under 11. So Congo actually has the least of 8 inches. And that does show in gameplay. If you give broadside to a Congo, even to a destroyer, if you watch my video on Gnevny and Farragut, I'm pretty sure I show you where I go up against a Congo and I just slam armor-piercing rounds into the side of her and I citadel her repeatedly. And it adds up really quickly over time. So yeah, you can be citadeled by destroyers in Congo, but you also have the speed to try and escape that kind of situation. So it's a double-edged sword. New York, easy to citadel. No, don't listen to the 12 inches. You're still going to be citadeled. Britannia, you're just a walking bomb. Koenig, Bayern, really, really good. Turtleback armor, you're going to take a lot of chunk damage, mind you, but you still have a lot of health to deal with that. Iron Duke, you can be citadeled. It's not that often, however, though. Tiger in Canada. Tiger, I don't think I've ever citadeled. Canada, I don't really have enough games to see if she can be citadeled. And then Maria, yeah, you can be citadeled pretty easily if you give broadside as well. Turning circle radius. Let's see here. Britannia has the most, or the least, I should say, 580 meters. So she can't take shots, but she can dodge them if she wants to, I guess. And then the worst is Congo, it looks like, is followed by Tiger. But that makes sense because they're built for speed versus maneuverability. Speaking about speed, Congo is the fastest at 30 knots. Tiger is the second fastest at 27.5. And then Bayern is pretty up there at 25 knots as well. But everything else is not exactly what I would call speedy. Even Canada is at 22.8 knots. She does get a speed boost, however, so that does increase a bit, but nothing past 25 or 26, I would say. Surface detectability, let's see here. We have Britannia with the least at 12.5 kilometers, so she's sneaky as well. And then we have Trista Maria as having the worst at 16.4 kilometers, which is kind of surprising considering Congo is a very tall ship, and same with Bayern as well. Air detectability, not really something I would worry about considering you're a battleship and you're going to be seen no matter what. That being said though, Britannia again is the stealthiest battleship, if you want to call it that, at 10.3 kilometers air detectability. And it looks like Trista Maria is also the worst at 14.1 kilometers. In terms of guns, Congo has 14s, New York has 14s, Britannia has 13.7s, something like that. Koenig has 12s, Bayern has 15s, Iron Duke also has 13.7 whatevers, Tiger has the same thing, Canada has 14s, and Maria has 12s. So actually, Imperatrice Maria and Koenig both have 12-inch guns. I forgot about Koenig when I was talking about her. But it's 12 guns on the Russian one versus 10 on the German one. So still not a very good comparison. In terms of 180-degree turn time, all of these are important because none of these ships have wing turrets. They're all centerline. Let's see here. Congo has 40 seconds. New York is about at 50. They're all about 40 or 45. The standouts are Koenig at 60 seconds, Bayern at 51.4. German turrets do not turn fast at these low tiers. But you also have ships like Imperatrice de Maria, which have 36-second turn time, which is exceptional. Especially considering you'll have to turn almost all of your guns if you want to switch targets from one side to the other. Rate of fire, they're all about 2.0 rounds a minute. Big exceptions, I guess you could say, is New York at 1.9 round a minute. Not really that much of a difference. But you also have ships like Koenig at 2.3 rounds a minute. So a little bit faster on the reload, though. In terms of reload, New York has the longest at 31.5 seconds. And Koenig has the shortest at 26 seconds. And then all the others are between 28 and 30 seconds. Nothing really substantial. HE damage per shell. New York has the highest at 6,300 per shell. Koenig has the least at 4,500, not counting Iron Duke, considering she doesn't even get the chance to shoot high explosive. Fire percent. Tiger has the highest at 38.3% chance of a fire. And then Koenig is the worst at 19.1%. HE velocity, or no, this is piercing. HE piercing. German battleship high explosive is actually really, really good at going through armor. So Bayern has the highest at 95 millimeters you can punch through with those 15-inch guns. Koenig is behind it. Even if it has 12-inch guns, it's still going to go through 76 millimeters of plating. And then it looks like Tiger has the worst chance of actually penning at only 42 millimeters of pen. So you're going to want to aim for the superstructure or the squishy ends, such as the very front of the bow or the very end of the stern. Don't shoot the belt, armor, or the midships at all because it's just going to shatter and do nothing. In terms of HE velocity, Britannia is really, really fast at 921 meters per second. That's the fastest high explosive shell of battleships at this tier. And then the lowest is going to be, looks like Tiger at 759 meters per second, followed by Canada and Imperatrice de Maria. So not exactly fast shells for the British and the Russians, but everyone else is about 800 or so, except French. The French are very fast. Armor piercing damage, Bayern actually has the highest at 112, or I should say 11,200. However, if you don't have a 5.6 matchmaking in your game, that means New York has the highest at 10,700 per shell. Armor piercing velocity, let's see here, who is the fastest? It looks like it's going to be Koenig at 855 meters per second, followed by Bayern. And then the rest are about 790 to 760 or so. Not exactly fast, but if you're all going at the same speed, it doesn't really matter. In terms of number of shells per minute, Congo has 16, New York has 10, considering she only has 1.9 rounds rate of fire. Britannia has 20, Koenig has 20, Bayern has 16, Iron Duke has 20, Tiger has 16, Canada has 20, and Imperatrice de Maria has 24. In terms of fires, Tiger and Canada, both being British battlecruisers, or at least in game they are, have the really high fire chance per shell. So you have 6 fires probable for both of them, even if Tiger only has 8 guns and Canada has 10. And then in terms of terrible chance of fire, we have New York with only 2, and then Congo and Koenig at only 3, and then everyone else has 4 or 5. In terms of high explosive alpha, they're all actually pretty similar at about 45,000, and then you have a jump up to 59,000 for Britannia and Canada, and then you have exceptions such as New York and Imperatrice Maria at about 63,000 as well. You can see how Maria actually has the highest, only by about 600 more damage though. In terms of armor piercing damage, we have 4 ships that crack 100,000 armor piercing alpha. That's Britannia at exactly 100,000. Actually, no, we have 5. We have New York also at 107,000. Iron Duke at 104,000, Canada at 105,000, and Imperatrice Maria at 103,200. All the others are pretty sad at about mid to high 80s. That's the difference between 5 turrets and 4 turrets for the most part, but in terms of Koenig, it's just because her guns just don't do that much damage. So yeah, in terms of gun power, Maria is definitely strong. So is New York. On paper, she has really good guns. In game, they're temporary, I guess you could say, or temperamental is the better word. But Bayern's guns are going to really do good. They're not going to do the most damage, but they're going to punch through the most armor and do a lot more, especially if you add that with the secondaries. Oh yeah, she just reaps damage so easily. In terms of firing range, Congo has the farthest at 18.5 kilometers. The shortest is actually Iron Duke at 15.6 kilometers, followed by Koenig at 15.9. But yeah, it's not that big of a range, but it's enough that you can use that to your advantage. So for example, Congo has the farthest range and the fastest speed. So she can figure out where in the game she wants to be when she engages the enemy. Does she want to be close? Does she want to be far? She has that ability to play the battlefield. In terms of secondaries, the only secondaries you should ever be paying attention to are Koenig and Bayern. To an extent, Imperatrice Maria as well. They're not terrible. They're somewhat usable. Especially Bayern, you have the farthest at 5.0, and then everyone else is between 4.4 and 4.5, except Tiger at 4.0, but Tiger's secondaries are trash, so don't worry about it. But yeah, just Koenig and Bayern, those are the secondaries you have to focus on. In terms of Aaa Defense, you can see the number of AA guns. Britannia actually has the most at 24 AA guns, and Tiger has the least at 2. Yep, that's absolute trash. In terms of total defensive or total AA numbers, though, Bayern has the most at 106 DPS, and Tiger is the worst at 13. You're not going to be shooting anything down with that. Other notable exceptions are Koenig at 82, so the German battleships are really calling in clutch with their AA defense. But New York also has 73, Imperatrice Maria has 72, so the Russians surprisingly have decent AA as well. And then you also have Congo at 68, Britannia at 65, and I guess you could say Iron Duke at 55, but that's kind of really pushing it. Everything else is trash. So Tiger in Canada, and I'm actually going to include Iron Duke in that. Just, yeah, they're not going to be able to do much in terms of AA defense. In terms of ranges, though, Congo and Iron Duke have the farthest range at 5 kilometers, and everyone else is about 4.5 or lower. Britannia, she might have really good, or on paper, really good numbers, but she only has a AA range of out to 3.1 kilometers. An interesting thing about New York's AA is that at 3.2 kilometers, she has the long range of 20 DPS and mid range of 32 DPS. So technically at 3.2 kilometers, she has 52 DPS, which is almost the best at this tier. Bayern has 72 DPS at 4.1 kilometers or 4.2, something like that. That's really good, and that does knock down a lot of planes. And at these tiers, you're not getting a lot of planes. You have Roiho, you have... Actually, no. We're not there yet. That's tier 6. So we have Shoho, Zoiho, Bogue, and Eagle. So nothing past 30 planes still, or just about. Yeah, if you knock down enough planes, you're going to make the carrier worthless for the rest of the game. Secondaries. Every single one of these ships has secondaries. So in terms of broadside, Congo has 7 single 152 or 6-inch guns that fire armor piercing. These actually do quite a bit of damage. Not as good as the Germans on Bayern, but they're still pretty good. And then 2 twin 127s that fire high explosive for a total of 11 guns on broadside. The upgraded New York, that's the stats that I'm paying attention to, has only 3 secondaries per side, 5-inch caliber of high explosive. The unupgraded hull on New York, though, does have a lot more secondaries. It has about 16 of them total, so 8 per broadside. But I don't use that ship, or that hull, so I'm not including that. Britannia has 11 138 millimeter high explosive secondaries. Let's see, that's just under, it's like 5.3, 140 is 5.4. So it's a 5.3 inch gun, the same actually on the Fantasque, or at least the same size caliber. 11 of those, but pretty much worthless. Koenig has 7 armor piercing 6-inch guns on a casemates and 2 twin 88 dual purpose anti-aircraft and secondary guns that fire high explosive. Bayern takes that up just a little bit with 8 casemate 6-inch guns of armor piercing caliber and 4 twin 88 dual purpose that fire high explosive on each side. She has the most secondaries of any, or on a broadside I should say, of any battleship at this tier of 16 guns per side. Iron Duke has 6-inch guns on each broadside that fire high explosive. Considering they're 6-inch guns and have high explosive, it's actually pretty decent if they are able to hit like a destroyer or something. But against anything else, they're just going to shatter. Same with Tiger, you have 6-inch high explosive guns. Canada has 8 6-inch high explosive guns, but still not really anything decent. And then Trista Maria has 10 guns on a broadside, each of a 5.1 inch caliber or 130 millimeter. These also fire high explosive, but they are actually really decent against destroyers. They have a faster rate of fire than the 6-inch of the British, and they're pretty decent in their ability to inflict damage. So in terms of broadsiding secondaries, you have Bayern at the top of 16 guns, Koenig, Britannia, and Congo following at 11, Imperatrice Maria at 10, then everything else is pretty much trash. Also, only one of these battleships gets a fighter, that is Congo. She has 3 planes total. It's a fighter. It's rank 6, has 2,000 health, and a speed of 162 knots. There's nothing really to compare it to, though, so that's all we have there. And then, lastly, we have our consumables. Thankfully, we only have 3 consumables this week, not like the 10 that we had for the cruisers. In terms of damage control duration, we have Koenig and Bayern that have the longest lasting damage control party at 25 seconds, which is actually really, really good. Followed by, actually no, New York also has a 25-second one. That's pretty nice. And Imperatrice de Maria. Alright, so the Germans, the Americans, and the Russians all have a really good damage control party. Followed by the British at 20 seconds, and then we have the French at 18, and the Japanese at 10 seconds, which is really, really bad. All of them have a cooldown of 80 seconds and unlimited charges. In terms of heal, every single ship gets a heal, not including the British. They all last half a minute, have a cooldown of 80 seconds, and have 4 charges. If we are looking at the British, those only last 25 seconds, have an 80-second cooldown, and you only have 3 charges, but they're all super heals, or that's what I remember. So, while we can't see how much each of the heals repairs per second, that is something you can see in World of Warships, not something you can see in Naval Creed, or at least not that I can tell. So, you may have less charges, and they don't last as long, but you do get comparatively more health per heal. It's really up to you. And then Tiger and Canada, being British battle cruisers, or at least in the game, do have access to a speed boost. Both of them last 90 seconds and a cooldown of 1 minute and 4 charges of those. So let's go back to the beginning and just give a quick rundown on all of these ships. So Congo, you're fast as heck, you have really long gun range, you have armor-piercing secondaries, your AA is actually pretty decent. It's not the best, mind you, but it's still pretty decent. However, you have the weakest belt armor and you have pretty trash maneuverability. But still a very, very fun ship. I do have a lot of good games with her. New York, on paper, is really good, and game is kind of trash. Your armor looks or wants to be good at 12 inches belt armor, but it's really squishy and you can be citadeled quite easily. And secondaries, especially against a Bayern, it's just going to tear you apart really, really quickly. Your AA, again, on paper is pretty decent, but you're a slow ship. You're 21 knots max speed. You're not going to be dodging anything. Secondaries, you have 3 of them on the broadside with the upgraded hull, so you can't even use those to protect yourself against destroyers. But your guns are pretty decent. Not counting Bayern's 15-inch guns, you have some of the strongest guns at this tier. You have 10 14-inch guns. And yeah, that really does show. Armor piercing will hurt any other ship that comes across. Still not a really good ship though. Like I said, your armor is a big part of being a battleship, and if it's not going to work, then you're going to go down really quickly. Britannia, similar concept to New York. You are trash armor. That's the first thing that comes to mind. Your secondaries, you have a lot of them. They don't do anything though, pretty much. The angle and the velocity of these shells is just absolute trash. Your guns, however, are pretty decent. I will say I do enjoy playing with Britannia once in a while. The middle turret is actually facing forward, so when you're going from the left to the right, you actually have 3 turrets, which is not something you can do on New York. You are a maneuverable battleship with the smallest turning circle radius, and you're a stealthy battleship with the best surface detectability and air detectability, but that is pretty much your only saving grace. Koenig, good armor, good secondaries, terrible rotation on the guns, absolute trash accuracy, pretty decent armor. Well, yeah, I already said that, but also anti-aircraft defense. And your speed, while not spectacular, is at least faster than New York. Bayern, if you get a tier 5 matchmaking game with Bayern, you're going to have so much fun. I guarantee it. You have overmatching capability with your 15-inch guns that can do the most damage per shell out of any battleship at this tier. You're maneuverable because you're a small hull. You have really, really good secondaries, including armor piercing and high explosive. You have 8 barrels of each to each side, so armor piercing for cruisers and battleships, and high explosive for everything else. And you can get that out to over 7 kilometers with a full secondary build, and honestly, I really recommend it. You might want to go for accuracy if you really want to, but if you get the crew skill with accuracy, just go for secondaries. Trust me. And you also have the best AA at this tier for a battleship. Yeah, the ship is very spectacular. She just kind of ruffle stomps everyone else. Iron Duke, she wants to be good. She kind of has a similar playstyle to New York with the same badly placed middle turret, but you don't really have any AA. Your secondaries on paper look good, but are only effective against destroyers, and they don't have a fast enough rate of fire to be able to be effective against destroyers, so it's still pretty much worthless. You have no high explosive shells for your main gun, so any fires you set are going to be from your secondaries. You have long fuse armor piercing, which is good if you're dealing with a bunch of bow-taking battleships. But a lot of battleships have to give broadside to shoot their guns, so you don't really even have to deal with bow-taking battleships. Armor piercing is pretty decent, but nothing special. Anti-aircraft defense is borderline useful, to put it the best way possible. You do have pretty good accuracy, though. That is something the British battleships do have. Your accuracy is pretty decent, but your gun range is also the lowest at 15.6 kilometers. So yes, you could be accurate, but by the time you can shoot anything, every single ship in, or at least battleship, is going to already be shooting at you. Sometimes a few salvos, because if there's a Congo at 18.5 kilometers and you can't shoot until 15.6, by the time you close that gap, there's at least 2 or 3 salvos already on their way. Tiger, you want to be a Congo, but you just don't quite make it. However, you do have a saving grace of having decent enough armor that it's really hard to citadel you. You have the biggest health pool in the, or at this tier for battleships, and pretty decent torpedo protection. But you just don't have the speed. You don't have the secondaries. You don't have any AA whatsoever. The 2 AA guns that it says the ship has are not even modeled. There's actual no AA guns on the ship at all. And then the only saving grace is your ability to light fires everywhere you look. If you shoot something with your main gun high explosive, it's gonna burn. I guarantee. It's very rare that you send a full salvo towards a ship that hasn't used or is using their damage control party and you don't get a fire. It's almost guaranteed. Especially if you watch my video on Tiger, there's one instance where I just shoot one spot, I shoot one spot in a ship, and it just lights fires every single time. And Canada, again, the British battlecruiser kind of gameplay. Still haven't really had enough game experience to give a yay or nay on her. I mean, she's an event ship, so it's not like if you don't have her, you're not going to play her. Well, you might come across her, so be careful. It's still 10 14-inch guns, and it's British battlecruiser high explosive. She has the possibility of setting a ton of fires every single salvo. She does have a speed boost, but at only 22.8 knots, it's not really that much of a threat. Her AA is okay for a battlecruiser, but that doesn't really say much. Yeah, the ship's kind of in between a New York and a Iron Duke, I guess. Not terrible, not the great. And then lastly, Trista Maria, 12-inch guns, but you have one heck of a number of them. Your secondaries, questionable, but at least you have a lot of them per side, and they are pretty fast firing. Armor, don't get broadside, that's all I can say. And your anti-aircraft defense is actually really good on paper, and you can kind of see that in game as well. It's not going to save you from an entire strike, but at least you'll knock down a few planes, and over time that'll add up really quickly. So I can't really say which ones are the best ships. I'm gonna say Imperatriz Maria is really, really good, as well as Bayern. And in my experience, Congo as well. Though I guess you can make, but it's the armor that and the speed that really gets me from making that. So Congo, Bayern, and Imperatriz Maria are my go-tos for strongest battleship for tier 5. That will wrap it up for this week. I will have some other videos before next week's Stats Clash of the tier 5 carriers. So we'll go over the videos or the missions for the newest event going out right now. And maybe we'll even go over Virginia or Michigan, whatever you want to call her, before next week as well. I'm not going to do the American destroyers, considering we don't have Somers yet. And I'm not going to do the British heavy cruisers because, again, they're not all out yet. Once they are, though, we'll definitely go over those ships. So thank you for watching, everyone, and have a good night.